Now it's restarted again. Okay, so there you go.
Do we have anything else we want to talk about before we break for lunch or whatever?
Would you like to see the latest version of the tool, Sam?
I just want to say something before we leave. And I had asked in the chat for Colin to look for the word expectation, because something that's been difficult for me from the start, you know, when I say from the start, I'm talking about maybe 3 years ago when I started with GCC, is, and not just in GCC, in other groups as well. I feel like I had to really figure out for myself, why are these people here? What are they doing? It was very difficult to figure out what the expectation of any given call was and how to direct my behavior in a way that fit in. And also what was hard, so there were two things that were hard about it. Coming in after it had already begun and there was already a history and a shared memory. And also different calls were slightly different. And I had this assumption that they were all the same in the different places, and they weren't. And that has an effect on people's emotional well-being, which we know has an effect on how people behave.
Yes. Beautiful summary.
Thank you.
In one sentence.
It is, and I think if you had that magical tool, you'd be able to come in and assess right away. Oops, I'm in the wrong room. Oh, this is a room I could really dive into. Or this room is going to be very challenging. If I want to stay here, I'm going to have to adapt. And, you know, like, for example, it would be nice if we had an example of 4 different examples or 4 different cases, 4 different conversation cases, and how those are so different, but we have them here.
Go look at yesterday's. We had no, well, Heiner came in with a topic, but he had to leave in 30 minutes. So we didn't really get into his topic. And then Jazz showed up and said, yeah, I don't think that we know what thinking is. So then I tried to respond to that, and that didn't really go anywhere. And then we kind of just, you know, shot the bull for 2 hours.
So
is that about a fair statement, Stacy?
Yeah.
So would you like to see the latest of the tool there, Sam?
Didn't have a conversation yesterday. We just hung out for 2 hours. And
Actually, I'm kind of burned out already after this long.
Just for Stacy's search, I'm up to 146 results. So this will be a good example.
Well, anyway, I'm going to leave. Whoops. Oh, well, since you put it on, I'll wait.
Yeah. So 5 expectations. Here we go. Found 150 times in 92 shows of 600 shows searched. So there's the first one.
What's the date? Oh, that's June 26th. That was just like, what is that, a week or 2 ago?
Yep. So, you know, and then so this one has 2 results. This one has 1. This is going to be a button right here. This top part, this is the title. I have to be careful how I select that or it'll do weird stuff because this is all enabled with Bootstrap, but it's not, doesn't have the JavaScript behind it yet. So as the other one I had, what did that old one look like? There's Zizek, by the way. That's how you spell his name there, Barry.
Yeah, those
Shlavov Zizek.
over the Z's. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is he?
Talk about being challenged. So, you know, and each one of these has like, so it has a word cloud. And what I want to have is this section collapse so that like if there's 50 results here, like if we go down here, there's probably one with more expectations. Here's one. As you can see, they can get quite long depending on how many matches you get. So, so it would be nice to have this collapse. So all as you get is the word clouds, the titles, and the amount of searches. Like, you know, add something down here. That's going to be the number of searches found. Here's possibly a couple of buttons to do some curating I'm thinking about if you want to go into curation mode. Anyway, this is kind of the state it's in. Eventually this should collapse, and it's all self-contained because these images are embedded images. And this particular file is 8 megabytes big. So you could just take this one file and it should be able to work as if it's like a mini app. And it's also reactive too, so that screen reactive.
It's incredible to me. I'm seeing the word no in every one, KNOW, and I
Yep.
don't see the word ask anywhere.
It's true. And then, after this, it would be nice if you could actually, right click on this and say, take this word and perform another search. And then this whole search collapse down into a node. And you can go to the next node, right? And at that point, you're starting to really get into trouble, because as long as the source information is kept as a single root, we're okay. As long as I'm just adding and annotating. But it might be worth do some discussion with some people who might want to discuss what kind of a distributed or architecture this should have when you start to actually build users and distribute and try to collaborate with this. Because right now it's at the stage where you can ask me for a search term and I can send you a Coca-Cola, and that's it, a one-off. And it might be like that for some time. So I'm trying to get this as pretty as it can be. And then this is going to be version 1. And then version 2 is going to be done through a web server with an application, a web application front end on it, so that you can actually hopefully go and dive down and search dynamically, build the caching and all that stuff, users. So this is what you call the quick down and dirty. This is the research and development behind what needs to be done to build the other tool, right? It's all done in stages. And this is actually a good sign of agile development, because where people make mistakes is they try to do everything at once, and it's called blue sky design, right? Where you want to try to do everything, where I'm trying to find the least that I can do that's valuable and get it done and get it working, and then you can build upon it, right? If it ever gets funded, then there's all kinds of reworks and things that can be done. But as a standalone project, it's just kind of being developed piecemeal. So anyway, any comments, Sam, or anybody?
I'll just say that I wasn't listening because my listening resources were exhausted about an hour ago.
Well, it's a little bit prettier than it was before, because there's actually word clouds now.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. The only
All
thing
right.
that I would say is, I'm not, it's no surprise to you, I'm not a technological person. So for me, a tool wouldn't be helpful. What helps me is, I look for the people attractors. That's what I do. So for me, I might want to know what other conversations is this person in, because I've already identified that person, they're like, I can recognize things about them that make me think that they may operate within the same theory of mind that I operate within. And so it's more helpful for me to find that tribe, and then I could learn from them things that I don't know. But I still need to at least be able to identify that we're within the same framework. And that's what I recognized in Barry, for me, that's what I recognize, that with all, even though we're very different, there's something similar that I know I can follow that path. Does that make sense?
Yeah, when I try to work with somebody, I try to figure out where is their frontier between solid knowledge and then the frontier and then essentially nothing. And if I can find the frontier, then I can try to contribute components which attach, like the jigsaw puzzle. I want to attach the next pieces that go on the frontier. If I can't identify the frontier between solid knowledge and gap, then I contribute either something you already know, boring, or something that you can't make sense of because it doesn't connect. I have to find the frontier. And the only reliable way I know to find the frontier is to use the Socratic method to walk somebody to their frontier. When you get to the point where you go, I don't know the answer to the next question, then I found it. Now I can be constructive, maybe, if I know anything.
For me, what's most important is, do I trust that this person will tell me the truth? Because I know how I think and I know how I learn. I don't need somebody to help tell me what's going to be better for me to learn or how I'm going to learn better. But I need to know that the information that I'm asking for, what they're going to give me, is going to be solid information. Because if they don't give me the truth, it changes all the calculations that are going on inside my head.
Right. Who's a source of reliable information and who's not a source of reliable information? And as soon as somebody reveals that they're not a source of reliable information, you pretty much stop paying attention to them.
Well, and one more thing, Colin, I just want to say one more thing, because there's two measures of that. It's, are they trying to give me, it's not just that they're not a source of reliable, like when I say if they're giving me the truth, there's their desire to tell me truthfully what they believe. And then there's how good is their judgment in deciding if what they are telling me is the truth. So it's both of those measures. Most importantly, I need to know the first. Are they actually, if I say, Colin, do you like this? Are you going to say yes or no and be truthful? That's most important to me.
Yeah, and my opinion may not, is just my opinion in that case, and and that's fine. That's a subjective question, not objective question.
Objectively not reliable. Opinion is not objectively reliable information.
Yeah,
it's just somebody's inchoate notions.
Well, stories built upon somebody must have checked this out somewheres, right?
And I tell people,
did somebody check this out? Did somebody actually do the experiment?
That's why I tell people, if you want to make up a conspiracy theory or just make up a notion, go ahead and do it and write a short story or whatever and put it in the fiction section of the bookstore and say, here's just a work of the imagination. Here's a flight of fancy of mine. It's not guaranteed to be scientifically accurate or baloney. It's just a work of the imagination, and it's a flight of fancy, and take it as a piece of entertainment or not. And so if somebody like Tom wants to come up with a flight of fancy and tell somebody, disprove it if it's wrong, I say, no, it's a flight of fancy, put it in the fiction section, and let people who want to read flights of fancy read flights of fancy.
Yeah, I have a different approach to that. I would rather start with wherever somebody is and say, okay, if this is true, then how do you explain this? Like, I'm willing to go along with them, a certain way. I mean, I do this with religious people a lot. Okay, if you think this is true, then how do you explain this? Oftentimes people will get frustrated when they come across their own contradictions.
From all that I can, the only wisdom that I can give in trying to change people's minds is they have to change their own mind. You can give them seeds of doubt, give them something to think about. But if you expect to change their minds, I think you have an expectation that's going to let you down. Not only that, the more effective route is to speak your truth in a way that, it depends. If you're having a one-on-one conversation, you might not want to continue the conversation because you might be out of the consent zone at that point where the person is not listening. You look up at the premise box and it's broken, right? And so you realize 2 or 3 things about the conversation that if you keep trying to forcefully push this conversation, you're actually turning into a bully. Maybe.
But Colin, I'm not looking to change somebody's core beliefs. So if somebody tells me they're a Christian, I don't argue with them about whether or not there's a God. What I will say is, well, then how could you speak so unkindly to this to this particular person, whatever it is, let's say,
Ah.
you know, regardless of whether.
Why
we're
are you a
talking about
hypocrite?
chil-
Well,
Well, but
Christians,
not in the,
Christians
but
make the
not
best
in
hypocrites
those
because they get
words.
forgiven.
When,
Sorry.
yeah, no. You get the point. You know, I'm not,
Yeah.
you know, if somebody says, well, that goes against God, I don't argue that with them. Instead, I say, I take something else that I
Yeah.
know they believe God says, and I said, okay, well, apply it here.
Yeah, but you're playing chess with pigeons at that point, right? When do you realize you're playing chess with pigeons? Like they're just going to knock the pieces over, and that's the way it's
Well,
going to
and
be.
but that's what goes through somebody's personality. I mean, what I'm talking about, there are certain people that say, I mean, I've had conversations with really fundamentalist people where they've thought that something happened because it was God's punishment for something. So rather than try to show them, you know, that's really crazy, I will use their framework and say, okay, well, what was this a punishment for?
Well, it's what you're up against there is a situation where, unless it's brought to this group and put on the table as a viable option, I've got nothing to say about it.
It wouldn't be brought to the group, but the reason this becomes an issue, and it's not just with religious people, but the
No.
reason this becomes an issue is because we get siloed. So like if I, like in terms of politics, I've been separated. I'm not sure if it's been
But
intentional or
stake,
not
stake
intentional.
breaks that. If there's a
Excuse me?
stake, if it's a crucial stake, that's what should break that silo, right? If there's something at stake. If there's nothing at stake, people can stay in their silo.
And the only thing that I think is ever really at stake is relationship. So the closer you are with somebody, the more you know. Then, like if you're a family, you will put up with more from your family than you will put up from somebody who lives across the street.
Maybe.
Yeah. No, Stan, I'm going to drop it also. Everybody, I hope you have a happy 4th and see you soon.
All right, I'm just going to save the chat here.
Yeah, no, that was really good. I think about being able to have awareness tools to know if the conversation is being manipulated in a positive or negative way is valuable, and whatever that means. I think that's what I'm saying with a fair conversation. It's a group effort to recognize the space and whatever emergence it has. So